mean, I can go for starting post game at 3:30 every week if that's an option.
Love to start post game at 3:30.
Can we make that like a tradition somehow? Is that a way?
I wish we absolutely could make this a thing.
Oh my word! All right, welcome in the Project Game Day post game show. It's brought to you by the U.S. Army. I'm Glenn Clark, and I am so happy for the first time in 2020. She's back. The NFL chick.
I'm here.
Syreeta Hubbard.
Hey, guys. I missed you guys.
You missed the big one. you missed.
No, I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, it might have been for the best, right?
What was that? I don't know. I didn't miss anything. What happened?
Yeah, but it's good to have you here as the Ravens roll today as expected down in Landover. I think that there will be people that will certainly find things they want to choose to be whatever about.
Fair, and it's fair. Listen, this is the first quarter. We've completed the first quarter of the NFL season, and
we hope.
Well, hopefully, right. And with that said, right, a lot of things hadn't happened. This is an unprecedented year. It was a little bit different than we've ever seen before. So you're going to see some things not go the way that you like.
I don't know. You know, it's funny, right? Like, I used the words at halftime, Reed. I used uneven. I used, I don't know, unmoved. I'm trying to find the right term to describe. And it goes back to what KZ and I had talked about a couple weeks ago, that the Chiefs game was so important that literally you're putting yourself in a position that, like, if you lose that game, you can't do anything that anyone's going to be moved by in a positive way.
Yeah.
The only way that anybody can care about anything is if it were to go south from there.
Why you ain't tell me they was about to get garbage points? People are...
Was it number 14? Son of a bitch, the number was 14.
Well, let me tell you something. That people are upset. If this score happens,
that's a real problem.
There's going to be a lot of people upset about their parlays.
There's a real...
Well, yeah, because it would be, if they score, it would be 14,
Yep, so
right?
That's just a push.
And
it's a push.
It's a push.
You don't get anything for a push. Push doesn't keep you in the parlay.
He didn't score there either. But ultimately, you know...
Let me go back to that for a second, Rita.
Let
me go back because you're reacting the same way all the rest of the gamblers are, and that's fair.
Because you know what, I'm staying away from right. Ravens games off my ticket.
Pushes help no one. They help no one.
And that was too big of a spread. Honestly, you probably should have stayed away from it.
Because goofy things can happen when the numbers are that big. All right, so let's get back to the point. The point being,
like that.
So now Robert's just got to go down and. Oh, please go for 2. Please, for some stupid reason, go for 2. All right, anyway. All right, let me try to focus. So the point that we had made is that, like, no matter what happens moving forward, like the Ravens could win every game 59-10 the rest of the season. And the reaction in the year, somebody's going to say, how do you feel about the Ravens? And you're going to be like, well, they got to beat the Chiefs. Like, that's it. That's, like, we are so tunnel vision on what the goals are right now for the Baltimore Ravens that even a day like today, you're going to walk away and you're sort of going to say, eh. And is it a little unfair because the Ravens went on the road and handled from start to finish another opponent, were never remotely even threatened by another NFL team? We should be able to react to all of those things and say that's relevant, that matters, that's important. But we did that last year. Like,
right.
we had that fun a year ago.
Yep.
Now we're in the, you better have. Like, you better have gone and done that. And frankly, we're furious that it's a 2-score game right now, which is a misleading score, obviously. But, like, we're furious by that. We're saying, like, this, you should be winning every game by 100 points. You're that much better than the Washington Football Club. Like, it's insane that you wouldn't be up by a million more. And that's the difficulty of having these conversations, and frankly is going to be the difficulty of having these conversations until we get to January, is we're kind of going to shrug our shoulders for the most part, right?
Based on my timeline, we are not going to be doing that. People are critical of the team, and I think that's because what happened last year is
again,
an anomaly.
Criticism, I'm not surprised by it. I'm just sort of saying, like, I don't think anybody's going to be excited, is my point. Like, there's going to be no excitement.
Oh, until they play an opponent that they believe
until they prove they can beat the Chiefs. And no matter what you do.
Well, that's over. Let's move on.
I hear you.
Let's move on.
But are you excited today? Are you excited after this?
Well, today was not an exciting game because that is not a good team. But when they play the Steelers, who as of right now are 3-0, and the Browns, who seem to have gotten themselves, back into some rhythm, yes, I am, because there are other teams on this schedule, guys. I don't know if you know this, but they have other teams that they have to play. They also have to play the Titans, I believe. They also have, so there's the Patriots. When Cam comes back.
That's a brutal stretch, by the way. In 5 weeks, they've got 2 Steelers games, a Patriots game, a Titans game, and the Colts are thrown in. And we don't know if the Colts are a thing yet or not.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, I am not bored. Today, okay, fine, right? Because the Washington football team is not a good team, but they play other teams that are pretty good.
And I understand. I just still feel like even if the Ravens walk through all of that.
But what if they went? But what if they, out of those 5 games that you mentioned, what if they lose 3 out of 5? Y'all still going to be bored?
It's a different thing.
Oh, okay.
What I'm talking about is a different thing. What I'm saying is on the positive, it's really difficult for anybody around town to get super excited because we have this thing that looms over us that feels like a, whatever you want to call it. You could say like it's a 10,000-pound gorilla that's on your back, right? And there's actually 2 things, because one is you're still dealing with the fact they haven't won a playoff game.
Correct. They're both simultaneously the same thing.
Secondarily, you're dealing with the fact that you've had 3 shots to beat the team that you're going to have to beat if you want to win a Super Bowl, and you haven't done it yet.
Correct.
And the last 2 haven't been close.
No.
You've been trending in the wrong direction as far as proving your ability to be able to beat the team that you're going to have to beat if you want to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So all these other things, right? Like I'm glad the Ravens took care of business today, right? Were they uneven a little bit? Was it a weird day? It was a little weird day.
It was a weird day.
There were some concerning things. Now, to be fair, Ronnie Stanley didn't play today. One of your 3 best football players.
It's a makeshift offensive line. And let's give credit to the God, I'm trying so hard not to say the R word because it is so easy.
It is very difficult, yeah.
Let's give Washington's front four some credit. Even without Chase Young, without the defensive tackle, they still have guys up front that are very good.
No doubt.
And yes, because we did have an offensive line that was a last-minute makeshift, they were able to get pressure all day. They were able to do some things that I had my Washington friends tell me they had the potential to do that, but me saying, "Oh, Chase Young won't be there. It's going to be different," and it probably was different, but still, they were able to get some push up front. They were able to have this offensive line look out of whack, which they do already because Ronnie Stanley's not playing. So give them the credit, right? And through that, the Ravens were able to push through and make some plays, a couple of plays that they needed to here and there on both sides of the ball, so then they can maintain this game pretty much.
They were never threatened. Right. They were never threatened for even a moment within this football game.
Now, if they play a different team, you might feel a different type of way.
100%.
But today, they beat the opponent that they were supposed to beat.
And they did it despite playing without one of their 3 best football players on the team. And they did it with different guys stepping up and making plays, right? Like Matt Judon, who had been critical of for the first 3 weeks of the season. Stepped up and made plays, right?
You're here.
Marlon Humphrey, who just got paid $1 billion the other day.
That's what he always do.
As first reported by Rita. Stepped up and made a huge play when there was a chance that this could be a football game of some sort. In the moments when there was some threat that this could somehow look like a football game, Marlon Humphrey said, "Yeah, about that, I'm going to go ahead and change that now." And from there, it was all gravy, right? Like, there will be... I get why we're going to bitch about Miles Boykin. I understand that we're going to bitch about Miles Boykin because he hasn't really done enough to justify things like what happened at the end of the first half. Yeah. And, that's I'd say 70% on him, right? Like,
I give Lamar a little bit of... But yes, I had to go back and look because I'm watching the game with my friend, and I initially didn't see it. So I had to go find the clip of it, and I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, Boykin has to do a better job here. Lamar has to do a better job here. But you're right. We hear about Boykin every year in training camp, how he's so much better. This is the second time we've heard this because this is his second year. He's gotten so much better and blah, 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 blah. And then he has, every now and again, he has these brain farts, and then that was the critical one because it turned the ball over in that regard. But so,
Rita, the difficult, this is, man, I keep coming back. I keep talking myself into circles right here, right? The difficult part about this is you come back and you give them their flowers, as you like to say, right? Like, they played well. They beat the opponent they had to beat. They did it without Ronnie Stanley. That's not as easy to do. He's an unbelievable football player. They were never really threatened. But yet, you still walk out of all of it and sort of saying, am I confident that football team right now is a football team that is either best suited or... damn close to it to win the Super Bowl?
No.
And that's the problem, right?
They don't look the same as last year, and they shouldn't, right? There's some pieces that they've interchanged since then. Hurst is gone, and then now you have some young guys, but they're still young. They're still unproven. What we do know, what I know, I can't speak for everybody else, but last week to me, and today kind of confirmed it for me, that Hollywood, as great as a player as he is not a number one guy, and you need a number one guy. And until the Ravens get that guy, that might be their missing piece in order to win a Super Bowl. The second thing is coaching, and that although it was a little bit better as the game went on. And initially, I was getting really annoyed.
You're going to talk about going back to the run?
Yes, yes. Eventually, they kind of went back to what it was. But, and on both sides of the ball, too, because like we learned last week, Wink can be a little bit too aggressive. And even in situations where he shouldn't be, he doesn't now. In the second half of the Chiefs game, he had made some adjustments. So they did what they had to do in this game because this is not a good football team offensively, right? And so then came the screens, then came the quick passes, which is something that the Ravens defense historically has not been the greatest at to begin with. But what he did at halftime is he found a way to zone them out and give the defense an opportunity to make some plays and not allow number 24, Gibson, to gash them like he did in the first half. Yeah, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate Greg Roman kind of going back to some basics here. But
it also helps when you get the ball first to start the second half, and you just march right down the field.
My concern is that if they play against a better opponent, are they going to stand there? Are they going to make reasonable adjustments? Or are they going to hit that panic button like they always do when they seem to be just a little bit behind and find a way to ruin the football game?
It's a fair question. I mean, it's
because they could do it. You could kind of do it here because they're not a good football team, right?
It's a completely reasonable question, and it's one we're forced to ask. We're forced to ask it because what we're really asking, and again, what we're really asking is, can this team win the Super Bowl, or will this team win the Super Bowl? Right? Like that's what we're really asking. But we can't know that, right? Because the Super Bowl is still a long way away. It might not even happen when they want it to happen, because Lord knows this thing could take us a long time, right? We're a long way away from having that answer.
Right.
We're trying to get hints to what that answer is.
Yes.
And the most recent hint that we had gotten was, no, they ain't close. Like they're maybe closer than Washington is.
And a good portion of other teams,
right? Correct, 100%.
I still believe
yes,
that they're a
overwhelming. There's
team.
no doubt. There's no doubt.
There's still a lot of people will consider them still a top 5 team or whatever, But
it's the team that's the best is here. And then everybody else starts coming in somewhere around here. Now, sure, there's plenty of teams that are down here, and it's good to be here. But the difference between where you need to be, I don't know if any of this is on Facebook Live or if my hands are like they might be like, what is this idiot doing? I'm trying to show.
Well, if you can't see his hands, it's clear that they are not in the same conversation.
And they can't be, right? Like there's nothing they've done that suggests that they are, right? So what we need to know, so if I got the Kansas City Chiefs up here, and this is, no, you can't see it on Facebook Live. This is well above my head.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out if the Ravens are closer to like where the microphone is, or if they're closer to up in that conversation. And after Monday night, there was real reason to think, no offense, that it's more like where the microphone is. You're that far apart. Now you got a bunch of games to play against teams that aren't the Kansas City Chiefs to try to get your. The likelihood is they ain't going anywhere, right? The likelihood is they're still going to be this well-oiled, super functional, damn near flawless machine up here because they have maybe the greatest quarterback in the history of football and a bunch of offensive weaponry that rivals anything that we've seen in some time.
Yep.
So the likelihood is they're not coming back to the mean. They're not regressing in any way.
Soon.
The only thing that could change that is injury, right? Yep. So unless that happens, they're staying right here. The Ravens have to figure out how to close the gap.
Well, I told 2 things here. I know I already told you the 2 things that is necessary, right?
You need a number one receiver.
You need a guy, and I really like Hollywood Brown. I do, but he is not a number. I don't know how else to say it. He's not.
I don't think I disagree with you. I think he's a really He's a really talented player.
He is
that deserves credit for how good he is.
Absolutely.
I
don't have a problem with him being a first-round pick either because I think that he can be a playmaker. I still think you need a guy that's bigger, that's faster, that can't be bumped off, that can get out of, man coverage and make some plays. That's and at times he doesn't do that because he's small. That really is it for me. He's small. He's a small guy. But and sometimes he chooses not to make a play that he probably should have made a decision to make a play. won last week. But ultimately, this team has some things that they need to work on, and I don't know if they're going to do that this year, because then that would require a trade or some type of free agency sign, which if a number one is on the street, then something's wrong with the rest of the NFL.
Well, everybody's obviously going to bring up one particular name.
Right now he's suspended, so I can't have that conversation because he's suspended for 8 games.
I've done this. I'm not doing it.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't want to go there, so don't judge me. I've had some moments of delusion to the point where I was like, well, is it so bad if it's just for a couple weeks? I think I'm off it now, but every now and again I'm like,
Rita, I understand. I don't even get mad at this. This is
not my fault. This is what the Ravens have created.
100% they have, and we talked about it at halftime. Look, it's coming up again. That conversation's coming up again. It will
come up again.
If there's no further suspension from the NFL after 8 weeks, this conversation is going nowhere. It's going to exist once again because the Ravens have allowed it to exist.
Absolutely.
And so I can't change that, right? I don't want it to exist. Like in my heart of hearts, I absolutely don't want to talk about Antonio Brown here in Baltimore. I don't want to have any of those conversations. But the two things that people always bring up is, well, other teams are using bad. Like the Kansas City Chiefs have had plenty of success with Tyreek Hill, who is a pretty confirmed bad guy, right? Like
literally and figuratively.
There's not a lot of gray area when it comes to Tyreek Hill, right? So somebody will say, if they're allowed to do that, why do we have to have standards? Why do we have to have...
because they've already made the notion from previous incidents that is a standard that they're going to create.
That's certainly part of it. I personally, someone who, like, my kids are Ravens fans, I'm inclined to be a Ravens fan. I want to be able to say that my line is... If the overwhelming evidence says you're guilty of sexual assault, and the overwhelming evidence... It's not just hearsay. Like, we've seen the text messages... We've got, unless somebody somehow shows me how those are not real, I as a fan don't want to be involved. I want there to be a standard by which we say we're not doing this. We're not selling ourselves out, and you can sit back and say, well, then somebody else can sign them and beat you with them. I just want to be able to say we're not going to do that. Like, you had the offseason to try to find that player. You didn't. You didn't prioritize significantly upgrading the weaponry that you were working with Lamar Jackson. You can say all you want about drafting Devin Duvernay, who there are things about him that I like. He's,
but that wasn't the end.
But that's not the guy.
And he could potentially be one day, right? I mean,
maybe
Antonio Brown's whole story. I mean, he was what, 6th round?
Yep, 100%.
So it's not like guys like that don't become players, but usually,
but he's not the answer today.
It's not like something that happens right away, right?
Correct.
And so I'm with you on that. You didn't do what you had to do, and then you did trade away one of the playmakers you did have, and then you gave us another guy that was like, oh, he's going to replace that guy, and he didn't really replace that guy. So, and Patrick Ricard.
Yeah.
Why was
Alan Ricard. Wow. You going back? You going back a minute?
Can't tell me I ain't been a fan. I was about to say Alan Ricard.
Wow.
And Patrick Ricard. So you never really. You did draft some young guys, but you really didn't replace one of the guys that was a pivotal piece into the offense that you had last year. So,
and to your point, it's that you're not even talking about the need for a piece. You're talking about you need special.
Yeah.
You need something special.
Yeah.
You need to keep... Defenses are deciding you don't have that. Your special is the kid under center. So they're stretching out the defense more from sideline to sideline to try to prevent him from getting the corners.
Right.
You need someone that's taking more attention away, and the guys you have just aren't, outside of Mark Andrews, who other than Monday night has proven to be special. And I get it. We're all still frustrated by what happened on Monday night. But he reminded you today... As a football player, Mark Andrews is special. He is a special player.
Was probably potentially an anomaly for a lot of people. Another guy that I think has a potential to be special because he played his ass off today is Patrick Queen. Like, he did not play well last week. We're well aware. He got benched for a little bit. And you know what, I'm going to be honest with you too, Glenn. I don't know if that's necessarily just Queen just being a rookie or if coaching put him in a position that he really could not win against that offense. And that's where I stand with that. That is a high task to ask him to do things, what they asked him to do last week, and that is only his 3rd NFL game. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many guys would have been able to do that against that type of offense. So I tried to take that game last week and say, okay, I mean, it happened. I can't act like it didn't happen. But what I do like about what happened today is that, I mean, he had a completely different ball game today as opposed to last week. And that says a lot about his resiliency and being able to just say, okay, last week was a nightmare, and I just gotta.
And someone would also point out that the opponent is far different too.
Yeah, but that goal line push that he had was.
Right.
I mean, he made some really good plays today, and I think that the first 2 weeks he's played pretty decent. So I'm saying that one game he was really bad, but the other games he played at a good level, and that's how you just kind of have to fare it. A lot of people didn't play well last week, but I think that this young kid, when you give him an opportunity to make a play, if the front four is going to do their job and you leave him clean, he's going to make plays. And I just like the potential of him being someone that could potentially be a special player.
So let me get to some comments. This is the Project Game Day post-game show. It's also brought to you by Wise Markets. Glenn and Rita with you after the Ravens win 31-17. No help to bettors in any, unless the number changed for somebody somewhere, but
no,
it was 14.
It didn't. It was a push.
From Paul, they're lacking pass rush. Their offensive line sucks. Their defense is giving up a lot of big plays. Jeez. All right. Well, the pass rush thing we talked about ad nauseum after last week's game. It was a true problem because, as we talked about, Rita, when you say we can scheme pressure, we can figure that, we'll trust Wink Martindale to make pressure work against the Washington football team. You're absolutely going to be capable of doing that. When you're playing Patrick Mahomes, you almost have to throw the concept out the window, right? Like you can't do that. Patrick Mahomes is desperate for you to bring someone towards him
he can kill you.
Because he's immediately going to look at wherever that guy was going to be and say, "Wonderful, there's single coverage somewhere.
Exactly.
I'm throwing the damn ball."
And then you wanted to
way."
play man.
Correct.
Fun times.
Correct. So you can do that against a lot of teams. You can't do it against the Chiefs. So I didn't pass rush today was no problem. The pass rush was quite good today. But one, Dwayne Haskins is not nearly as mobile as even the average NFL
Fred
quarterback
Flintstone.
at this point,
He's
right?
Fred Flintstone in the pocket.
I mean, it's unbelievable, right?
He got stone feet.
Who was the?
He's very Philip Riverish in that regard.
I mean, the way the league has changed, he's definitely in the bottom tier of mobility quarterbacks, right? Like, it's not just that he's not super mobile.
Yes.
He's in the bottom tier of mobile quarterbacks. Whereas Patrick,
which is why that one sack that he took at the fourth quarter when they were like first and goal, and Ferguson got him. I mean, and that's him, because he has no mobility, unfortunately, and so there's that part of it. But outside of that, I didn't think he had a bad game, but that was a sack that you could not afford
so that
to take.
helps you in having your pass rush have a great day, is that you're facing a quarterback with no escapability.
Yes.
It also helps that they were a bit banged up on their offensive line, all of those things. But you had no problem. Today's story has nothing to do with pass rush. The pass rush was there today. The pass rush question is, to me, specifically about the Chiefs. That goes back to the conversation we had a week ago, which is, do you need to go get a pass rusher to make up the difference in trying specifically to beat the Chiefs? Because I don't really have many pass rush concerns about this team the rest of the season. It's uniquely about facing Patrick Mahomes. I think you can scheme pressure against just about everybody else you're going to face all year long. You just can't do it against that dude. It's not happening. If you're beating that guy, you got to have dudes winning one-on-one matchups.
And that's the issue. That is the bigger issue to me. I'm not saying that they should rush 3 and drop 8 when you play the Chiefs. Obviously, you don't want to give Mahomes all day so that guys can get open. But okay, you're rushing, you're blitzing, and then your guys can't keep up with their guys, and that's the problem that I have with them. And so, people wanted to talk about the Chargers. Well, first of all, that's a division rival, and also the Chargers have better pass rushers up front, Bosa. That allow them to do things.
Melvin Ingram, 100%.
And allow them to do things in their secondary and in their linebacking core that can cover the Chiefs because they are pressuring that man all day. We don't have that same weaponry.
I said this week in my column at PressBoxOnline.com, I don't know that you need a better roster. I think you might need a different roster for beating the Chiefs.
I think you need a different approach. I think it's not necessarily a roster. You still do need a pass rusher. Let me be clear.
That's my issue. I really don't know if you can beat the Chiefs without someone who is dominant and winning one-on-one matchups, providing you pressure.
But I don't necessarily know if that's the way to beat the Chiefs either. Like I don't have a problem with, you can run some man, but I don't have a problem with playing zone either, because that's what they did. They mixed it up in the second half and they only allowed 7 points.
Right.
So I still think, I agree with you. I think me and you are on the same page in terms of you still need a pass rusher, because you still do need somebody to disrupt him, to get him off of his game a little bit, right? But if he still makes the game, you need some guys that's going to be in front and behind those guys that they can't keep up with. So they don't have big explosive explosive plays, and that's the bigger issue.
A lot of conversation in the comments about J.J. Watt. So Scott brings up, I wonder if we can go get J.J. Watt.
I mean, do you...
Paul from Orlando, I'll admit, I started looking at the winless teams and who on their roster I might want on the Ravens. 0-4, 1-5 Texans teams. Do you see any chance that J.J. Watt is tradable? Or is he like Cal Ripken? He's a Texan for life, win, lose, or draw. I'd like to think he wants to win a ring, and sand is running out in the hourglass for him.
I mean, a guy that it doesn't appear as an every down guy anymore due to injuries, due to age.
Although, I mean, what I've seen, he's looked good,
but
you know? Other than the first game. He didn't look good against the Chiefs.
Still not an every...
Maybe that's the problem, right, Rita? Like, I saw him against the Chiefs, and he was a non-factor.
But he still plays at a high level,
yeah.
But he's not playing 3 downs anymore. So, do you want that? I mean, I'm just asking.
His contract's a problem too.
Do you think that J.J. Watt not playing every 3 downs is better than all the other guys that you have at this point? And if you do, that's really sucks because Judon is tagged and he's making a whole lot of money.
A lot of money. I mean, you hope that today was a sign of things to come from Matt Judon, but
you want it to be, particularly because this is probably a contract year for him.
No doubt. I don't know if the J.J. Watt thing is practical.
I agree. Like you said, his contract.
There's a lot of money involved. I don't know how.
They got guys they need to sign.
Right, and for the Texans, like at some point, you have to have something. And I guess they've got Deshaun, so they'll always have Deshaun. But all you've done is just get rid of your dudes. Like,
well, let's keep the party going.
Like, I mean, if that's just what you're gonna do, is just constantly trade away all the good players, I guess. But at some point, you got to have something, right? Like, you gotta have somebody on the football field besides Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
Scott, I love Hollywood, but he's a number 2. Snead is number 3, and Boykin is worthy of the practice squad.
Oh, that's perhaps not nice. And honestly, I think that Hollywood is a number 2, but where Hollywood really would get burned is that slot, because not one slot corner would be able to keep up with him. Not one, and he would eat. I like him at 2, but I think he'd be better served at 3. So they still need a number 1. Basically, what we're both saying is they still need a number 1. I just, again, these things are harder to do. Like, we talk about the fact the Ravens made a significant trade a year ago that I think a lot of people were very surprised by, although the circumstances what allowed it. You didn't have to give up that much. It was sort of like, here, take this guy from us because we're not going to be able to pay him. We decided to go get this other guy. So here, you can just have him. And it worked out, obviously, tremendously for the Baltimore Ravens, and they did it. I don't know. We're talking about guys that might require true blockbuster types of trade. Yeah.
A number 1 type wide receiver. I don't even know hypothetically who that guy is. I don't know what happened with the Bengals today, but, like, A.J. Green's not really that guy anymore. He's been that guy, and I'm not telling you that I'd be opposed to having him. I don't know what it would cost for the Bengals to trade him within the division.
I feel like that was something they should have done anyway to get some value from A.J. Green, just because that's a team that's not going to the playoffs.
Right. And, math doesn't seem to line up.
And you would rather have done that in the off season, because if he did have a slow start, it devalues him.
Is there a world in which Julio's on the market?
Oh, God. Please don't put that into my brain.
I mean,
don't put that into my brain, Glenn.
It would cost you a lot, and he's into his 30s now. You know what I mean?
But
like,
he still plays at a high level.
I'm with you. I'd still, if he's healthy, I'd still like to have him.
He still plays at a high level.
No doubt.
But that ain't happening. So I guess we just need to keep on going.
It's hard to get those guys. It's hard to get those guys.
I don't know what the Ravens can do in 2020. I don't know how they can get that.
And I think that's why, unfortunately, the conversation is going to keep coming back to Antonio Brown, which. But everybody's going to sit back and say, well, you don't have to give up anything. All you got to do is sign the guy. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of teams that are all that interested. You can just go sign him. And I'm going to keep saying the same thing. I'm a hard no until somebody were to somehow prove to me that I don't have the whole story or something was false or whatever. Because I don't care about the others. I don't care about he's a distraction or he's a bad guy or any of that stuff.
Because I don't even think any of that stuff would matter in this locker room. I don't even think that would be an issue here.
It is a very hard, it's a singular thing. It's a singular issue for me.
I get that. And that's very valid.
When all of the evidence says to me that I jade my on your back, when I see that text message, you're openly admitting to this thing. I can't. I'm out then. Like, I'm out. Sorry. No. It's just a no for me at that point. There's no coming back from it. So I don't like it. I don't like that we're going to keep having the conversation, but
Unfortunately, the
We're gonna keep having
Ravens
the
are going to force us to keep having
the conversation.
So here we are.
All right, I need 1 minute to let all the fine folks that make the show possible tell you all about themselves. Then we'll come back in. We'll start, we just brought up the Bengals a second ago. That's next for the Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk a little bit about that and some more of your comments. I'm Glenn. She's Rita. It's the Project Game Day post-game show.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is available now. Our fall seasonal menu is available for dine-in, dine-out, on the patio, or to-go. It's a new season, so enjoy new flavors. Try their new chicken schnitzel or the delicious Prussian pretzel rolls. Glory Days is open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Visit glorydaysgrill.com for a location near you. From the Glory Days Grill family, stay healthy and positive during this challenging time in our community.
Looking to get one up on the competition? Supercharge your computer skills. CCBC has classes at all levels from beginner to expert coder. Explore Microsoft Office, gaming, or even ethical hacker. Maybe hardware is your gig. Become A+ certified. All tuition free if you qualify. Call 443-840-4700 or visit ccbcmd.edu/quickreg.
With Wise Market's lowest price guarantee, we guarantee the lowest price in the area. If a local competitor advertises any of our tagged lowest price guarantee items at a lower price, we'll give you double the difference with purchase.
Eat better, spend less, that's Wise.
If you're looking to make an impact, there's no better place to do that than the U.S. Army. Whether your goal is to fight and cure deadly diseases, develop technologies, or seek adventures across the globe, the Army is where all of that can happen, and so much more. The Army is a team of 1 million individuals working together to take on the most complex problems in the nation and the world, and to win. Ask yourself, what's your warrior? Go to army.com/Baltimore to find out. To learn more, contact your local Army recruiter and find us on social media at U.S. Army Baltimore.
All right, we are winding down for the Project Game Day post-game show after the Ravens beat the Washington football team 31-17. They improved to 3-1 on the season, and next week they get the Cincinnati Bengals, who are much like it's almost the same story next week. The only possible way we could have any sort of enthralling conversation is if something were to go wrong. There's literally nothing on the positive side they could do a week from now that would make us say, "Yeah, that's where we are."
I mean, the thing about like this Ravens team and from last year to this year is that they typically beat the opponents that they face, that they're supposed to beat. And so for them, that has been, it's not like the years past where we every week is like, I don't know what's going to happen this week. Who knows what team shows up? Pretty consistently, they show up against the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they beat them pretty handedly, right? I would expect the same thing. Not necessarily like a big blowout. I think the Bengals do try.
Yeah, and I think they're more. I think they're more capable offensively than Washington is.
Yes,
they are. And there could be somewhere to say, hey, if there's a concern, it's that Washington moved the ball a little bit in the first half. They showed some signs of the Ravens defense being vulnerable, and a better offense might have had a better day, and things might have been more competitive. And I think there is something to be said for. Who knows? I'm not trying to tell you the game would have been interesting or competitive, but if the Ravens don't convert the fake punt there and Washington has a little bit of momentum, they might have been able to at least keep it a football game for a little. I'm not trying to say they would have come back, or they would have, but they might have at least been able to keep it in the realm of interesting. For a little bit longer had it not been for the fake punt, which, credit to the Ravens, turned out to be a perfectly timed.
Sam Cook is on his.
He's such a rock star, isn't he? He's such a rock star.
And
My
so
God.
You have Gibson that had a good game against the Ravens defense, and now you play Joe Mixon, who finally is clearly an upgrade. I mean, and that's no disrespect because Gibson is a very good football player, but Mixon is a very talented football player, and he has had he's played well.
And
so
he finally really broke out today after a struggle to start the season. It seemed like they were struggling to find his place in the Joe Burrow offense.
And I never thought for a second that those are the type of guys that the Ravens typically will have a problem with. And so that is a concern. We know what A.J. Green has done against, even though he's not been himself. in this offense as of yet. We know what he has done, right? You can't forget
100%, yes.
And Burrow is, while he's still learning, he's done some good things.
Yep.
So it will be interesting to see this game next week. Do I think that the Ravens will win? They should, but I also don't think that the Bengals is just going to roll over and give it to them either.
I agree. They
got some good skill players.
The good news, John Harbaugh said after the game today that Ronnie Stanley's shoulder strain, he's hopeful that he will be back for next week. So
you think he just gave him a week off?
I mean, it's a weird thing where, right, like he practiced on Thursday,
Yeah, yep.
but it's just sort of a weird, I don't know exactly, or if it was Stanley himself getting out there and just saying, I don't have it, I don't know what the story is, but the good news is they don't think it's a long-term deal. They think it's a short-term thing. You hope that's the case, and he's back out there next week,
Yep.
and you're good to go long-term from there. Rita, we're going to be doing a lot of these shows. This is just they can't play the Chiefs again until they play the Chiefs again. It's the reality.
Thank the Lord.
You hope.
But they do have some better opponents ahead
And
of them.
those will be more interesting, no doubt.
And I want us to recognize that, right? Like,
I'm
this
with
is not
you.
last year. It's not going to be a walk in the park. There's some guys that are playing well right now, and they just so happen to be on our schedule. So,
Well, I hope we do very drama-free post-game shows. I hope that we're starting all of them at 3:30.
Yes, me
I
too.
hope that it's nothing but that the rest of the way.
Me too.
People can follow you, of course,
Yes.
at the NFL Chick,
Yes.
the Gridiron Gals podcast,
Yes.
and sometimes you just like to break news. Now you just want to be Rita. You just want to be Rita Schefter. Just want to be Rita Schefter over here.
hey, don't get too
Tipping
comfortable
off
with that.
everybody.
Don't get too comfortable
Let
with
us know when the Stanley extension's coming.
I
All
got
right?
you.
Would
I
you
got
keep us on that
that.
one?
Will do.
Of course, I'll be back with you tomorrow morning for Glenn Clark Radio and at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter throughout the week. And if you don't have your masks yet, get to PressBoxOnline.com/masks. Get cool masks like this
Nice.
one celebrating
Yeah.
the MVP whose name we can't say, but you know who it is. So that's the way it goes. Get it right now. You know the rules to these things. PressBoxOnline.com/masks. All right, Ravens win. They're 3-1. We'll see you next week. Thanks to the U.S. Army and Wise Markets. Thanks to you guys for checking us out. This has been the Project Game Day postgame show.